In the grand mansion of one of the wealthiest women in the country, an old, weathered photograph is discovered hidden within the pages of an old book. The photo, depicting a young child with a curious smile, seems oddly familiar, yet its origins are a mystery. What starts as a simple curiosity soon leads the millionaire on a journey filled with unexpected secrets, long-lost family connections, and truths that will change her life forever. The past, it turns out, was never quite as she believed, and the truth behind this picture will unravel everything she thought she knew. Amelia Sinclair was not accustomed to surprises. She had built her life on planning, precision, and control. From her multi-billion-dollar empire to the lavish estate she called home, every corner of her existence was neatly organized, perfectly curated, and entirely within her control. Or at least, that's what she thought. It was a rainy afternoon, and the heavy clouds hung low over the Sinclair estate. The mansion, a sprawling piece of architectural grandeur, was filled with the soft hum of activity. The staff moved quietly through the halls, attending to their tasks, while Amelia sat in her study, browsing through her late grandmother's collection of old books. She was searching for a particular volume, a book of poetry that had once been her grandmother's favorite. Amelia pulled the worn, leather-bound book from the shelf, its cover faded with age. She opened it, expecting to see the familiar verses, but instead, something slipped from between the pages and fluttered to the ground. Amelia bent down, picking up the small, yellowed photograph. It was a picture of a child, perhaps no older than 4 or 5, with bright eyes and a mischievous smile. The background was indistinct, a simple garden, the kind that could have been anywhere. But the child looked happy, carefree, as if the world were filled only with possibilities. Amelia felt a strange sense of familiarity as she stared at the photograph. There was something about the child's eyes, the shape of the smile. It tugged at a memory she couldn't quite place. She turned the photo over, hoping for a date, a name, anything that would give her a clue as to who this child was. There was nothing but a single faded word, written in her grandmother's elegant script. Hope. Amelia frowned, her brow furrowing as she stared at the word. Hope. It could have been a name, or perhaps it was meant to signify something else entirely. She had never heard of any family member named Hope, and she had spent her entire life believing she knew everything there was to know about her family. Her grandmother had been a meticulous woman, much like Amelia herself, and the idea that there could be secrets hidden within the family was almost unthinkable. Intrigued, Amelia set the photograph on her desk and continued to flip through the book, but her mind kept wandering back to the image of the child. She tried to place the face. Did it belong to a distant relative? A neighbor's child? Someone her grandmother had known? The more she thought about it, the more the sense of familiarity gnawed at her. It was as if she should know this child, as if the answer were just out of reach, hiding somewhere in the recesses of her memory. Later that evening, Amelia found herself staring at the photograph again, unable to shake the feeling that there was something important about it. She decided to call her assistant, Clara, a young woman who had worked for Amelia for several years and knew more about Amelia's family than anyone else, save perhaps her grandmother. Clara, I need you to look into something for me, Amelia said, her voice steady but filled with an undertone of curiosity. She held the photograph up to the camera during their video call. This picture, do you recognize it? Do you have any idea who this child could be? Clara squinted at the image, her brow furrowing. It looks old and familiar somehow, she said slowly, but I don't think I've ever seen it before. Where did you find it? It was tucked inside one of my grandmother's old books, Amelia replied, her gaze still fixed on the child's bright eyes. There's no name, just the word hope written on the back. I want to know who this child is, Clara. Something tells me this is important. Clara nodded, her expression thoughtful. I'll see what I can find out, Miss Sinclair. There must be some record somewhere. Family albums, letters, something that could give us a lead. Amelia ended the call, her mind racing. She had spent her entire life believing she knew her family's history, every detail, every story, every connection. But now, holding this mysterious photograph, she realized that there were pieces missing, parts of the story that had been hidden from her, and she was determined to uncover the truth. The next morning, Clara arrived at the mansion with a box of old family records, letters, photographs, and documents that had been stored in the attic for decades. The two women sat together in the study, sifting through the box, searching for any clue that could shed light on the identity of the child in the photograph. Hours passed, and the pile of documents grew smaller, but they found nothing. No mention of a child named Hope. No photographs that matched the one Amelia had found. Frustration began to gnaw at Amelia. She wasn't used to not having answers, to not being in control. But just as she was about to give up, Clara pulled out a faded envelope, the paper brittle with age. "Ms. Sinclair, look at this," Clara said, her voice filled with excitement. She handed the envelope to Amelia, who carefully opened it, revealing a letter written in her grandmother's elegant script. The letter was addressed to someone named Margaret, and as Amelia read the words, her heart began to pound. The letter spoke of a child, of a little girl named Hope who had been born in secret, a child that no one in the family had known about. The letter hinted at difficult circumstances, at choices that had been made to protect the child, at a deep love that had driven those choices. Amelia's hands trembled as she read the letter, her eyes widening in shock. A secret child, a sister, or perhaps an aunt, that she had never known existed. The realization hit her like a wave, and she felt her heart clench in her chest. Her grandmother, the woman who had raised her, who had taught her everything she knew, had kept this secret her entire life. And now, decades later, that secret was coming to light. "Clara," Amelia said, her voice barely above a whisper, "this changes everything. We need to find out what happened to Hope. We need to know where she is, if she's still out there." Clara nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I'll do everything I can, Ms. Sinclair. We'll find her." As Clara left to begin her search, Amelia sat alone in the study, the photograph of the child in her hands. She looked at the bright eyes, the carefree smile, and she felt a sense of loss for the family she had never known, for the sister or aunt who had been hidden from her all these years. But more than that, she felt a sense of hope. A hope that she could uncover the truth, that she could find this missing piece of her family, and perhaps finally understand the choices her grandmother had made. And as she looked out the window, the rain still falling in steady sheets, Amelia knew that this journey would change everything. The secrets of the past were coming to light, and she was ready to face whatever truths they held, no matter how difficult, no matter how painful. Because family was worth it, and she was determined to bring Hope home. Amelia Sinclair had always prided herself on her ability to solve problems, to find answers where others saw only questions. But as the days turned into weeks, the mystery surrounding the photograph seemed to deepen rather than unravel. Clara worked tirelessly, combing through archives, old records, and reaching out to anyone who might have known Amelia's grandmother. But the leads were few and far between. The name Hope appeared nowhere in the family history, and the more Amelia searched, the more she realized just how deeply her grandmother had hidden the secret. One afternoon, Clara arrived at the mansion, her expression a mix of excitement and uncertainty. She had found something, a name, an address, a possible connection that could lead them closer to the truth. She handed Amelia a piece of paper with an address scribbled on it, her voice trembling slightly as she spoke. "This might be it, Miss Sinclair," Clara said. "I spoke with an old friend of your grandmother's, someone who remembers a child named Hope. She said that Hope was taken in by a family in a small town just outside the city, a family named Morgan. It's not much, but it's the best lead we've got." Amelia stared at the address, her heart pounding in her chest. A small town, a family named Morgan, finally, a tangible lead. She nodded, her determination returning. "We're going there, Clara. I need to know the truth." The next morning, Amelia and Clara set off for the town, a small, quiet place nestled between rolling hills and fields. The drive was long, And as they left the bustling city behind, Amelia found herself feeling a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She had spent her entire life believing she knew everything about her family, and now she was on the brink of discovering a part of her past that had been hidden from her for decades. When they arrived, the town was exactly what Amelia had expected, a place untouched by time with narrow streets, quaint houses, and a sense of quiet that was almost unnerving. They found the address, a modest house with a white picket fence and a garden filled with wildflowers. Amelia hesitated for a moment, her hand hovering over the gate latch. She took a deep breath, then opened the gate and walked up the path, Clara following closely behind. A woman in her 60s opened the door, her eyes widening slightly at the sight of the two strangers standing on her porch. She had kind eyes, her face lined with age, but her expression was cautious. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice wary. Amelia cleared her throat, her heart pounding in her chest. "My name is Amelia Sinclair," she said, her voice steady. "I'm looking for someone named Hope. I believe she may have lived here once." The woman's eyes softened at the mention of the name, and she stepped aside, gesturing for them to come in. "I'm Margaret Morgan," she said, her voice gentle. "Please come in. I think I know why you're here." Amelia and Clara followed Margaret into the small living room, the walls lined with photographs and mementos that spoke of a life filled with love and family. Margaret motioned for them to sit, her gaze resting on Amelia. "You said you're looking for Hope," Margaret began, her voice filled with a mixture of sadness and nostalgia. "Hope was my sister's child. She came to live with us when she was very young, maybe 4 or 5. Your grandmother Amelia brought her here herself. She said it was for Hope's safety that there were circumstances that made it impossible for Hope to stay with her." Amelia felt her breath catch in her throat, her heart aching at the thought of her grandmother making such a difficult choice. "Why didn't anyone know about her?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why was she kept a secret?" Margaret sighed, her eyes misting over. "Your grandmother loved Hope dearly, but there were complications. I don't know all the details, but there were people who would have caused harm if they knew about her. It was safer this way for everyone. She made the hardest choice a mother could make, to let her child go to keep her safe." Amelia felt tears well up in her eyes, her heart breaking for her grandmother and for the child she had given up to protect. "Do you know where Hope is now?" she asked, her voice trembling. Margaret looked down, her expression filled with sadness. "Hope stayed with us until she was about 15. She was a bright, wonderful child full of love and curiosity, but she always felt like something was missing, like she didn't quite belong. When she turned 15, she left. She said she needed to find her own way, to understand who she was. We haven't heard from her since." Amelia's heart sank, the hope she had felt slipping away. "Do you have anything of hers?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something that might help me find her?" Margaret nodded, rising from her chair and disappearing into another room. She returned a moment later with a small box worn with age. She handed it to Amelia, her eyes filled with emotion. "These were Hope's things," she said softly. "Perhaps they'll help you find her." Amelia took the box, her hands trembling. She opened it, her heart aching as she looked at the items inside. A small stuffed bear, a few photographs, and a letter, its edges yellowed with time. She picked up the letter, her eyes scanning the words written in her grandmother's familiar script. The letter spoke of love, of sacrifice, of a promise to always watch over Hope, even from afar. Tears streamed down Amelia's face as she read the words, her heart aching for the family she had never known. She looked up at Margaret, her voice filled with emotion. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for taking care of her." Margaret nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "I hope you find her, Amelia. She deserves to know where she comes from, to know that she was always loved." As Amelia and Clara left the house, the sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the small town. Amelia held the box tightly in her hands, her heart filled with a mixture of hope and determination. She knew that the journey ahead would be difficult, that finding hope after all these years would not be easy. But she also knew that she couldn't give up. Not now. Not when she was so close to finding the missing piece of her family. Clara looked at Amelia, her voice gentle. "What do we do now, Ms. Sinclair?" Amelia took a deep breath, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "We keep looking, Clara. We follow every lead, every clue. We're going to find her. We have to." Clara nodded, her heart swelling with admiration for Amelia's determination. She had seen her boss face many challenges over the years, but this was different. This was personal. And Clara knew that Amelia would stop at nothing to find her sister. As they drove away from the small town, Amelia looked out the window, her heart aching but filled with hope. She thought of the child in the photograph, the bright eyes, the carefree smile, and she knew that she would do whatever it took to find hope, to bring her home and to finally understand the truth that had been hidden for so long. The past was full of secrets, but Amelia was determined to uncover them all, no matter what it took, no matter how difficult the journey, because family was worth it, and she was ready to face whatever truths lay ahead. Weeks passed as Amelia and Clara continued their search for hope, and it felt as though they were chasing shadows. They followed every lead, made countless phone calls, and even hired private investigators to help in their quest. Amelia felt an unrelenting determination to find her sister, driven by the knowledge that there was a part of her family, a part of herself, that she had never known. One evening, Amelia sat in her study, the small box Margaret had given her open on her desk. She looked at the photographs of Hope as a young girl, her smile radiant and her eyes filled with a brightness that spoke of dreams and endless possibilities. She wondered where Hope was now, what kind of life she had lived, and if she even knew the sacrifices their grandmother had made for her. As she sat there, lost in thought, her phone buzzed on the desk, the screen lighting up with Clara's name. Amelia quickly answered, her heart pounding. Clara's voice came through the line, her tone filled with excitement. "Ms. Sinclair, I think we've found her," Clara said, her voice trembling. "One of the investigators traced Hope to a small town on the coast. She's been living there for the past several years. Her name is now Hope Williams." Amelia's breath caught in her throat, her heart racing. After all these weeks, after all these years, she was finally close to finding her sister. She closed her eyes, a wave of emotion washing over her. "Are you sure it's her?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, I'm sure," Clara replied. The investigator was able to confirm her identity. "She runs a small art gallery in the town. Ms. Sinclair, she's really there." Amelia felt tears welling in her eyes, her heart swelling with hope. "Thank you, Clara," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I need to see her. I need to go there." Clara nodded on the other end of the line. "I've already booked your flight, Ms. Sinclair. I'll come with you, of course. We'll leave first thing in the morning." Amelia ended the call, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked at the photograph of Hope once more, her eyes filled with emotion. She was finally going to meet her sister, finally going to fill the void that had been in her heart for so long. She knew it wouldn't be easy, that there would be questions, emotions, and years of separation to bridge. But she also knew that this was her chance to finally bring her family back together. The next morning, Amelia and Clara arrived in the small coastal town, the salty sea breeze whipping through the air. The town was picturesque, with cobblestone streets, colorful houses, and a marina filled with boats bobbing gently in the water. It was the kind of place that seemed untouched by time, a peaceful, quiet refuge from the chaos of the world. Clara guided Amelia to the address the investigator had given them, a small art gallery near the waterfront. Amelia's heart pounded as they approached the building, her hands trembling slightly. The gallery was quaint, with large windows displaying paintings of seascapes, sunrises, and portraits that seemed to capture the soul of the subject. Amelia took a deep breath, her eyes misting over as she stepped inside. The gallery was quiet, the scent of paint and sea air filling the space. She looked around, her gaze falling on a woman standing near the back, her back to them as she arranged a painting on an easel. The woman had dark hair streaked with silver, tied back in a loose bun. She wore a simple dress, her movements graceful and sure. There was something about her posture, the way she tilted her head as she studied the painting, that made Amelia's heart skip a beat. She knew without a doubt that this was Hope. Clara stepped back, giving Amelia space, her eyes filled with encouragement. Amelia took a shaky breath, her heart pounding as she took a step forward. "Hope?" she called, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman turned, her eyes widening in surprise as she looked at Amelia. For a moment they both stood there frozen, staring at each other. Hope's eyes were the same as in the photograph, bright, filled with curiosity but now tempered by the years, by experiences that Amelia could only imagine. Who are you?" Hope asked, her voice hesitant, her eyes searching Amelia's face. Amelia's throat tightened, tears welling in her eyes. "My name is Amelia Sinclair," she said, her voice trembling. I think I'm your sister." Hope's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth, her expression one of shock. "My sister?" she whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't know I had a sister." Amelia nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I only found out about you recently. Our grandmother, she kept you a secret to protect you. But I've been looking for you, Hope. I've been looking for you because I wanted to know you. Because you're my family." Hope's eyes filled with tears, her expression softening as she took a step toward Amelia. "I've always wondered," she whispered. "I've always felt like there was something missing, like there was a part of me I didn't know, and now you're here." Amelia took another step forward, her heart aching as she reached out, her hand trembling. "I'm here, Hope," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "And I'm never going to let you go." Hope's tears spilled over as she took Amelia's hand, her fingers trembling. She looked into Amelia's eyes, her voice breaking. "I've waited my whole life to know where I come from, to know who I am. And now I have you." Amelia pulled her sister into a hug, holding her close, her heart swelling with love and relief. "You're not alone anymore, Hope," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We're in this together. We're family, and I promise you, I will always be here for you." The two sisters spent the rest of the day together, sitting in the gallery, talking, crying, and sharing stories of their lives. Hope spoke of her years with the Morgan family, of the love they had given her, but also of the emptiness she had always felt, the questions that had never been answered. Amelia shared stories of their grandmother, of the life she had built, and of the sacrifices she had made to protect Hope. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the waterfront, Hope looked at Amelia, her eyes filled with hope and uncertainty. Do you think there's a place for me in your life?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Amelia felt tears well up in her eyes, her heart swelling with love. "Of course there is," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "You're my sister, Hope, and there will always be a place for you in my life, in my home, in my heart." Hope smiled, her eyes misting over as she looked at Amelia. "I've always dreamed of having a family," she whispered, "and now I have one." Amelia nodded, her heart full. She reached for Hope's hand, her voice filled with emotion. "We're going to make up for all the lost time, Hope. We're going to be the family we were always meant to be." And as the two sisters sat together, watching the sun dip below the horizon, they knew that this was only the beginning. They had found each other, after all these years, and they were ready to face whatever the future held, together, as sisters, as family. The journey had been long, filled with uncertainty, with pain, and with loss. But in the end, they had found each other, and that was all that mattered. The past had been full of secrets, but now, they were ready to write a new story, one filled with love, with hope, and with the promise of a future they would face side by side. The weeks following Amelia and Hope's reunion were filled with moments of discovery, joy, and a journey to reconnect not only with each other but with the memories of the past that had shaped their lives. Hope decided to take a leap of faith and leave her coastal town, temporarily closing her art gallery to join Amelia in the mansion that had been a significant part of their grandmother's life. For Hope, the mansion was overwhelming at first, a place she had only heard about in stories, a place that held the life she could have had but didn't. Walking through its grand halls, she felt a mix of emotions, curiosity, awe, and at times a lingering sadness for all the years that had passed without knowing her sister or the world she came from. Amelia, ever the planner, had arranged for a room to be prepared for Hope, one that she hoped would feel like home, like a fresh start. It was bright, filled with paintings of the ocean that Hope loved so much and furnished with warm touches that made the space feel welcoming. When Hope saw it for the first time, she was moved to tears. She looked at Amelia, her heart swelling with emotion. "You didn't have to do all this," Hope said, her voice trembling. "But thank you. I've never had anything like this before." Amelia smiled, her eyes misting over as she looked at her sister. "You deserve it, Hope. You deserve to have a place where you feel safe, where you feel like you belong. And I want you to know that this is your home now, too." Hope hugged Amelia, tears streaming down her face. She had spent her whole life feeling like she was searching for something, an answer, a connection, a place to call home. And now, standing in the mansion with her sister by her side, she felt for the first time that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The following weeks were a period of adjustment for both sisters. Hope had never been accustomed to the luxuries of Amelia's life, the grand dinners, the staff that attended to every need, the lavish parties filled with influential people. It was a world that felt foreign to her, a stark contrast to the simple, quiet life she had built for herself. One evening, Amelia invited Hope to join her for a formal dinner with several business associates. Hope hesitated. She had never attended anything like it, and the thought of being surrounded by people who knew nothing of her past, of her journey, made her anxious. But Amelia insisted, promising that she would be there by her side every step of the way. Hope stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the elegant dress that Amelia had given her for the occasion. She barely recognized herself. The dress was beautiful, a deep shade of blue that brought out her eyes, and her hair had been styled by one of Amelia's staff. She looked like she belonged in Amelia's world, but deep down she still felt like an outsider. Amelia knocked on the door and entered, her eyes lighting up when she saw her sister. "You look beautiful, Hope," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "You're going to be amazing tonight." Hope gave her sister a small smile, though her eyes were filled with uncertainty. "I don't know, Amelia. This isn't my world. I don't know if I'll ever fit in." Amelia stepped closer, her gaze gentle. She reached for Hope's hand, her voice soft. "You don't have to fit in, Hope. You just have to be yourself. That's more than enough, and I'll be right there with you the whole time." Hope nodded, taking a deep breath. She followed Amelia down the grand staircase, her heart pounding as they entered the dining room. The room was filled with laughter and conversation, the table set with fine china and crystal glasses, the chandeliers casting a soft glow over the scene. Amelia introduced Hope to her business associates, her voice filled with pride as she spoke of her sister. Hope tried to smile, tried to keep up with the conversation, but she felt out of place, unsure of what to say or how to act. She watched as Amelia moved through the room with ease, her confidence evident in every gesture, every word. At one point, one of the guests turned to Hope, his expression curious. "So, Hope, what do you do?" he asked, his tone polite but filled with a hint of skepticism. Hope hesitated, her heart pounding. She looked at Amelia, who gave her an encouraging nod. "I'm an artist," Hope said, her voice trembling slightly. "I run a small gallery by the coast." The guest raised an eyebrow, a small smile tugging at his lips. "An artist, huh? That must be interesting." Hope felt her cheeks flush, the familiar feeling of not belonging washing over her. She looked down at her plate, her fingers tightening around her fork. But before she could say anything, Amelia spoke up, her voice firm. Hope is an incredible artist, Amelia said, her eyes narrowing slightly. She has a gift for capturing the beauty of the world in her paintings. I've seen her work, and it's amazing. I'm so proud of her. Hope looked up at her sister, her eyes misting over. She could see the love and pride in Amelia's eyes, and it made her heart swell. For so long she had felt like she was on her own, like she had to prove herself to the world. But now she had someone who believed in her, who was proud of her, just as she was. The rest of the evening passed more easily. Hope found herself relaxing, her confidence growing as she spoke about her work, about her gallery, about the life she had built for herself. She realized that she didn't have to be like Amelia, didn't have to fit into this world perfectly. She just had to be herself, and that was enough. The following day, Amelia and Hope sat together in the garden, the sun shining down on them, the scent of flowers filling the air. Hope looked at her sister, her heart filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Amelia," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "For everything, for believing in me, for giving me a chance to be a part of your life." Amelia smiled, her eyes misting over. She reached for Hope's hand, her voice gentle. "You don't need to thank me, Hope. You're my sister, and I love you. I'm just so glad that we found each other, that we get to be a family." Hope nodded, her heart swelling with love. She looked out at the garden, the flowers swaying gently in the breeze, and she felt a sense of peace, a sense of belonging that she had never known before. As the weeks turned into months, Hope began to find her place in Amelia's world. She started painting again, setting up a studio in one of the mansion's many unused rooms. She found inspiration in the mansion's grand architecture, in the stories of her grandmother, and in the bond she had formed with Amelia. Amelia, too, found herself changing. She had always been focused on her work, on her success, on maintaining control over every aspect of her life. But having Hope in her life had taught her that there was more to life than business deals and wealth. She found herself spending more time in the garden, more time painting with Hope, more time simply enjoying the moments they shared. One day, as they sat together in Hope's studio, Amelia looked at her sister, her eyes filled with emotion. "You know, Hope, I think this is what our grandmother would have wanted," she said softly. "For us to find each other, to be together. She made sacrifices to protect you, and now we get to honor her by being the family she always dreamed of." Hope nodded, tears welling in her eyes. She looked at the painting she was working on, a portrait of their grandmother, her expression filled with love and wisdom. "I think you're right, Amelia," she whispered. "She wanted us to be together, and now we are." Amelia smiled, her heart swelling with love for her sister. She reached for Hope's hand, her voice filled with warmth. "And no matter what happens, we'll face it together. We're family, and that's all that matters." Hope nodded, her heart full. She looked at her sister, her eyes misting over. "Together," she whispered. And as they sat there, surrounded by the warmth of the studio, the sunlight streaming through the windows, they knew that they had found something truly special. They had found each other after all these years, and they were ready to face whatever the future held, together, as sisters, as family. The journey had been long, filled with uncertainty, with loss, and with pain. But in the end, they had found each other, and that was all that mattered. They had built a new life together, one filled with love, hope, and the promise of a future they would face side by side. Life seemed to be settling into a comfortable rhythm for Amelia and Hope. The sisters had grown closer, their bond strengthening with each passing day. Amelia had opened her heart to Hope, sharing not just her home but also her life, her struggles and her triumphs. Hope, in turn, had found a place where she could finally put down roots, where she could truly feel like she belonged. The mansion, once a symbol of solitude and opulence, was now filled with laughter, warmth, and a sense of family. But just as everything seemed to be falling into place, an unexpected twist came crashing into their lives, threatening to unravel everything they had worked so hard to build. One evening, as Amelia sat in her study, Clara entered the room, her expression tense. She held a newspaper in her hands, her eyes filled with concern. "Miss Sinclair, I think you should see this," she said, her voice low. Amelia took the newspaper, her eyes widening as she read the headline. "Secret Sinclair Family Scandal, The Hidden Child Revealed." Her heart sank, her hands trembling as she scanned the article. It detailed everything: Hope's existence, her connection to the Sinclair family, and the years she had spent hidden from the world. The tone was scandalous, the language sensational, painting a picture of deceit and secrecy that Amelia knew was far from the truth. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. She knew what this meant. Her family's private story, the sacrifices her grandmother had made, the bond she had worked so hard to rebuild with Hope, was now being dragged into the public eye. And she also knew that this would have an impact far beyond her personal life. The media frenzy could affect her business, her reputation, and most importantly, her relationship with Hope. Clara watched Amelia's face pale, her voice filled with concern. "What do we do, Ms. Sinclair? How do we handle this?" Amelia took a deep breath, her mind racing. She needed to protect Hope, to shield her from the scrutiny that was sure to follow. But she also knew that she couldn't do it alone. "I need to talk to Hope," she said, her voice trembling. "I need to prepare her for what's coming." Hope was in her studio, her brush gliding across the canvas, when Amelia entered. She looked up, her smile fading as she saw the expression on her sister's face. "Amelia, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice filled with worry. Amelia hesitated, her heart aching as she held out the newspaper. Hope took it, her eyes scanning the headline, her expression shifting from confusion to shock and finally to pain. She looked up at Amelia, her eyes filled with tears. "They know," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They know everything." Amelia nodded, her own eyes misting over. She stepped closer, her voice gentle. "I'm so sorry, Hope. I never wanted this for you. I never wanted your life to be turned upside down like this." Hope set the newspaper down, her hands trembling. She turned away, her voice breaking. "I just wanted to have a family. I just wanted to feel like I belonged, and now the whole world knows about me, about what happened." Amelia felt her heart clench, tears welling in her eyes. She walked over to her sister, placing her hands on Hope's shoulders, her voice filled with emotion. "You do belong, Hope. No matter what anyone says, no matter what they write. You are my sister, and you are a part of this family. I won't let anyone take that away from us." Hope turned to face Amelia, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "But what about the business? What about your reputation? I don't want to be the reason you lose everything you've worked for." Amelia shook her head, her voice firm. "None of that matters to me, Hope. What matters is you. What matters is that we're together. I'm not going to lose you. Not now. Not ever." Hope's tears spilled over, her heart aching with a mixture of fear, love, and gratitude. She hugged Amelia, her voice trembling. "I don't know if I can handle all of this, Amelia. I don't know if I'm strong enough." Amelia held her sister tightly, her voice filled with determination. "You are strong enough, Hope, and you're not alone. We'll face this together no matter what." The next few days were a whirlwind of media attention, phone calls and questions. Reporters gathered outside the mansion gates, cameras flashing, hoping to catch a glimpse of the Sinclair sisters. The pressure was immense, and Amelia knew that she had to take control of the narrative before it spiraled further out of control. She called a press conference, deciding to face the media head-on. Hope was hesitant, unsure if she was ready to speak in front of the world, but Amelia reassured her that she didn't have to do anything she wasn't comfortable with. "I'll handle this," Amelia said, her voice filled with confidence. "You don't have to say a word if you're not ready. I just want you to know that I'm here for you." On the day of the press conference, Amelia stood in front of the cameras, her posture straight, her eyes steady. She took a deep breath, her voice calm as she addressed the gathered reporters. "I'm here today to set the record straight," she began, her voice carrying strength and conviction. "The story that has been published is true. Hope is my sister. She is a part of my family, and she always will be. My grandmother made the decision to keep her hidden to protect her, to keep her safe. It was a decision made out of love, and I stand by it. Hope has lived her life away from the public eye, and I ask that you respect her privacy. She deserves to live her life in peace without the scrutiny of the media. Amelia paused, her eyes scanning the crowd. Hope is not a scandal. She is not a secret to be exposed. She is a person, a wonderful, kind, and talented person who has brought so much light into my life. And I will do everything in my power to protect her, to stand by her, and to ensure that she is treated with the respect she deserves. The reporters were silent for a moment, taken aback by Amelia's honesty and the strength in her words. She had taken control of the narrative, refusing to let anyone dictate her family's story. And as she stepped away from the podium, she felt a sense of relief, a sense that she had done the right thing. Back at the mansion, Hope watched the press conference from the living room, her heart swelling with emotion. She had been so afraid of being exposed, afraid of what the world would think of her. But seeing Amelia stand up for her, seeing her sister speak with such love and conviction, made her realize that she wasn't alone. She had a family that would fight for her no matter what. Amelia entered the room, her eyes meeting Hope's. She walked over to her sister, her heart swelling with love. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, her voice filled with concern. Hope nodded, tears streaming down her face. "You did that for me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You stood up for me, even when you didn't have to." Amelia smiled, her own eyes misting over. She reached for Hope's hand, her voice gentle. "Of course I did. You're my sister, Hope, and I love you. Nothing else matters." Hope hugged Amelia, her heart swelling with love and gratitude. She had spent so long feeling like she was alone, like she had to protect herself from the world. But now, she knew that she had a family that would stand by her, no matter what. And as they stood there holding each other, they knew that this was the true meaning of family. It wasn't about wealth, or power, or reputation. It was about love, about standing by each other in the face of adversity, about fighting for the people who mattered most. The storm had come, but they had faced it together, and as the dust began to settle, they knew that they were stronger for it. Stronger as individuals, stronger as sisters, and stronger as a family. No matter what challenges lay ahead, they were ready to face them, together side by side, with love, with courage, and with the unbreakable bond that only family could provide. The aftermath of the media frenzy was a time of reflection and transformation for Amelia and Hope. Despite the challenges, they had emerged stronger, both individually and together. The mansion, once a symbol of wealth and power, had become a refuge, a safe haven where the sisters could rebuild their lives away from the public eye. It was no longer just Amelia's home. It was their home, a place where they could finally be themselves, without fear or pretense. Hope had decided to reopen her art gallery, but with a twist. She wanted to bring the gallery to the mansion, to share her art with the community that had welcomed her into their hearts. She began converting one of the unused wings of the estate into a gallery space, filling it with her paintings, each piece telling a story of love, resilience, and the journey she had taken to find her place in the world. Amelia was proud of her sister's courage, her willingness to face the world on her own terms. She had always admired Hope's strength, but now, seeing her embrace her talent and share it with others, Amelia realized just how special her sister truly was. Hope's art had become a beacon of hope, not just for herself, but for everyone who saw it. One sunny afternoon, the day of the gallery opening finally arrived. The estate was filled with people, friends, neighbors, and members of the community who had come to support Hope and celebrate her work. The gallery was bright and airy, the paintings hung with care, each one illuminated by the soft afternoon light streaming through the large windows. Hope stood by the entrance, her heart pounding with excitement and a touch of nervousness. She wore a simple yet elegant dress, her hair pulled back in a loose bun, her eyes shining with pride and anticipation. Amelia stood by her side, her hand resting gently on her sister's shoulder, her smile filled with warmth and love. As the guests arrived, they were greeted by the sisters, who welcomed each person with a genuine smile. Hope led them through the gallery, speaking about her paintings, sharing the stories behind each piece. She spoke of her time in the coastal town, of the years spent searching for a sense of belonging, and of the journey that had brought her to this moment. Her voice was filled with emotion, her heart open as she spoke of the love and sacrifice that had shaped her life. Amelia watched her sister, her heart swelling with pride. She saw the way the guests listened to Hope, the way they admired her work, their eyes filled with appreciation and respect. Hope had always been meant for this, to share her gift, to touch the lives of others with her art. And now, she was finally living her dream. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the estate, Hope stood before her guests, her voice trembling slightly as she spoke. "I want to thank all of you for being here today," she began, her eyes misting over. "This gallery is more than just a collection of paintings. It's a reflection of my journey, of the love that has brought me here, of the family that I've found, and of the hope that has guided me through the darkest of times." She paused, her gaze shifting to Amelia, her voice breaking with emotion. "To my sister, Amelia, I don't have the words to express how grateful I am to you. You've given me a home, a family, and a place where I truly belong. You've stood by me through everything, and I want you to know that I love you more than anything." Tears welled in Amelia's eyes as she stepped forward, pulling her sister into a hug, her voice trembling. "I love you too, Hope, and I'm so proud of you. You've always been a part of this family, and you always will be." The guests erupted into applause, the sound filling the gallery, and Hope smiled, her heart swelling with joy. She had spent so many years searching for her place in the world, but now she knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. That evening, after the guests had left, Amelia and Hope sat together in the garden, the air cool, the stars twinkling above them. They sat in silence for a moment, the only sound the gentle rustling of the leaves in the breeze. Hope looked at her sister, her heart filled with gratitude. "You know," Hope began softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "I never thought I'd find this. I never thought I'd have a family, a home, a place where I truly belong. But now I know that I was always meant to be here with you." Amelia reached for Hope's hand, her eyes misting over. "You were always meant to be here, Hope," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "I think our grandmother knew that, even if it took us a long time to find each other. She wanted us to be together, to be a family. And now, we are." Hope nodded, tears welling in her eyes. She looked up at the sky, her heart swelling with love and hope. "I think she'd be proud of us," she whispered. "I think she'd be happy to see us here, together." Amelia smiled, her heart full. "I know she would," she said softly. "She made sacrifices to protect you, and now we get to honor her by being the family she always wanted us to be." Hope leaned her head against Amelia's shoulder, her eyes closing as she felt the warmth of her sister beside her. She had spent so long feeling like she was on her own, like she had to protect herself from the world. But now, she knew that she had a family that would stand by her, no matter what. The following weeks were filled with a sense of peace and fulfillment. Hope's gallery had become a place of community, a space where people gathered to admire her art, to share their stories, and to connect with one another. Amelia had found herself spending more time in the gallery, helping Hope with events, meeting new people, and discovering a side of herself that she had never known. For Amelia, the gallery was a reminder of what truly mattered. She had spent so much of her life focused on success, on wealth, on maintaining control over every aspect of her life. But now she realized that true success wasn't about money or power. It was about love, about family, about the moments shared with the people who mattered most. One evening, as they sat together in the gallery after closing, Hope looked at Amelia, her eyes filled with emotion. "You know, Amelia," she began, her voice trembling, "I think this is the happiest I've ever been. I have a family, a home, and a place where I can share my art. And it's all because of you." Amelia shook her head, her eyes misting over. She reached for her sister's hand, her voice filled with love. "It's because of us, Hope. We found each other, and we built this life together. And no matter what happens, we'll always have each other. We're family, and that's all that matters." Hope smiled, her heart swelling with love and gratitude. She looked around the gallery, the paintings that told the story of her journey, and she knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. She had found her place in the world. She had found her family, her home, her hope. And as the sisters sat together, the stars twinkling above, they knew that their journey was far from over. They had faced challenges, they had overcome obstacles, and they had found each other after all these years. But more than anything, they had found love. A love that was unbreakable. A love that would carry them through whatever the future held. They were the Sinclair sisters, and they were ready to face whatever came next. Together, side by side, with love, with courage, and with the promise of a future they would face hand in hand. No matter what the world threw at them, they knew that they were stronger together, that they were a family, bound by love, resilience, and hope. And that was all they needed. Years later, the Sinclair estate had transformed into a vibrant center of love, art, and community. What had once been a mansion filled with echoes of silence had become a home filled with life, laughter, and the echoes of a family that had come together against all odds. Hope's art gallery was no longer just a part of the mansion. It had grown into a beloved destination for artists, visitors, and members of the community. Hope had continued to pour her heart and soul into her art, creating works that spoke to the human spirit, pieces that captured the beauty of resilience, the strength of love, and the journey of finding one's place in the world. Her gallery had become a space where people came not just to see the art, but to experience it, to feel the emotions that radiated from every painting, every sculpture, every brushstroke. One crisp autumn morning, Hope stood in the gallery, her gaze moving over her latest collection. Paintings of the sea, the waves crashing against the shore, the colors blending together in a symphony of blue and gold. She smiled as she looked at the pieces, her heart swelling with a sense of peace and fulfillment. She had found her place, her purpose, and she knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Amelia entered the gallery, her eyes lighting up as she saw her sister standing there, lost in thought. She walked over, her heels clicking softly against the floor, and placed a gentle hand on Hope's shoulder. "They're beautiful, Hope," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "Every single one of them." Hope turned to look at her sister, her eyes misting over. She reached for Amelia's hand, her smile filled with love. "Thank you, Amelia, for everything. I couldn't have done any of this without you." Amelia shook her head, her eyes filled with emotion. "You did this, Hope. You found your way. You built this gallery, and you made it a place where people can come and feel something real. I'm so proud of you." Hope felt tears well up in her eyes, her heart swelling with love for her sister. She looked around the gallery, her gaze lingering on each painting, each piece of art that told the story of her journey. "I never thought I'd have this," she whispered. "A family, a home, a place where I can share my art. I spent so many years searching, and now I feel like I'm finally home." Amelia smiled, her heart full. She pulled her sister into a hug, holding her close, her voice trembling with emotion. "You are home, Hope. You always have been, and no matter what, we'll always be here, together." As the years went on, the Sinclair estate became a place of gathering, a place of community. Amelia and Hope opened their doors to artists, to musicians, to children who wanted to learn and grow. The mansion became a hub of creativity and inspiration, a place where people could come to find themselves, to connect, and to be part of something bigger. Hope continued to paint, her work evolving with each passing year, each new experience. Her gallery grew, attracting visitors from all over the country, people who came to see the work of the artist who had poured her heart and soul into every piece. Hope's paintings spoke of love, of family, of the strength that came from facing adversity and coming out the other side stronger. Amelia, too, found herself changing. She had always been focused on her work, on her success, on maintaining control over every aspect of her life. But having hope in her life had taught her that true success wasn't about wealth or power. It was about love, about family, about the moments shared with the people who mattered most. She began to spend more time in the gallery, helping Hope with her projects, meeting new people and discovering a side of herself that she had never known. One evening, as they sat together in the garden, the sun setting over the estate, Hope looked at her sister, her eyes filled with emotion. "You know, Amelia," she began softly, "I think this is the happiest I've ever been. I have a family, a home, and a place where I can share my art. And it's all because of you." Amelia shook her head, her eyes misting over. She reached for her sister's hand, her voice filled with love. "It's because of us, Hope. We found each other, and we built this life together, and no matter what happens, we'll always have each other. We're family, and that's all that matters." Hope smiled, her heart swelling with love and gratitude. She looked around the garden, the flowers swaying gently in the breeze, and she knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. She had found her place in the world. She had found her family, her home, her hope. Many years later, as the sisters grew older, they found themselves reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. They had faced challenges, they had overcome obstacles, and they had found each other after all these years. They had built a life together, one filled with love, laughter, and the warmth of family. One crisp autumn afternoon, Amelia and Hope stood together at the edge of the garden, looking out at the estate, the gallery, the flowers that bloomed in every color imaginable. The air was cool, the sky a brilliant shade of blue, and the leaves crunched beneath their feet as they walked side by side. Hope looked at her sister, her heart swelling with love. "Do you remember the first time I came here?" she asked, her voice soft. "I was so scared. I didn't know if I'd ever fit in, if I'd ever belong." Amelia smiled, her eyes misting over. She reached for her sister's hand, her voice gentle. "I remember. And I remember telling you that you didn't have to fit in, that you just had to be yourself. Because you are more than enough, Hope. You always have been." Hope felt tears well up in her eyes, her heart filled with gratitude. She looked out at the garden, her gaze lingering on the flowers, the trees, the gallery that had become her life's work. "I think I finally understand now," she whispered. "I understand that I've always belonged. I just had to find my way back to you." Amelia nodded, her heart swelling with emotion. She pulled her sister into a hug, holding her close, her voice trembling. "You found your way, Hope. And now, we're here, together." And as they stood there, the cool breeze rustling the leaves, the sun casting a golden glow over the estate, they knew that they had found something truly special. They had found each other, after all these years, and they had built a life filled with love, hope, and the promise of a future they would face hand in hand. No matter what the world threw at them, they knew that they were stronger together, that they were a family, bound by love, resilience, and hope. And that was all they needed. They were the Sinclair sisters, and they were ready to face whatever came next, together, side by side, with love, with courage, and with the unbreakable bond that only family could provide. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its final rays of light over the garden, the Sinclair estate stood as a testament to the journey they had taken, to the love that had brought them together, and to the hope that would carry them forward, always together.